Hello and welcome to episode 66 of the Tea and Possibilities podcast. I'm Nikki and this is a podcast all about knitting and crocheting and making all the things here in Northwest London. You can find me on Instagram at hippie_Nikki. I'm Nikki Hippie on Ravelry, and if you search for Tea and Possibilities under the groups tab on Ravelry, you will find our group right there. As always in the group, there will be a chatter thread about this episode, and you can find links to that and everything else I've mentioned, including juicier show notes over on my blog, just down below. As always, I would like to kick off the episode by saying thank you. If you're a new viewer, welcome, and thank you for giving the podcast a shot. And if you're one of my lovely returning viewers, thank you for coming in every episode and sitting down to have a cup of tea and a bit of a knit with me. However, today it isn't tea, and long-standing viewers will know what I mean when I say this is Ribena. First of all, this is in a brand new mug that a friend gave me. I believe it is from Flying Tiger, and it says, "All we knit is love." And she picked that up for me just as a little treat, which was very sweet of her. And I'm looking into the camera now and it pretty much matches my top, which my mum gave me. So yeah, people know the colours that I use and wear a lot. But yes, it isn't tea today, it is Ribena. I haven't been sick since last November was the last time I was properly unwell. I had some hay fever at the beginning, not the beginning of the year, but in the springtime. I get really severe hay fever, and I never seem to take the antihistamines in time, so I felt a little bit unwell, and then I took them and they kicked in, so I didn't really get sick then. And I had like a very short-lived cold. It was sniffles. I had a slightly runny nose for like a day back in September. So I haven't been sick in about a year. I've been taking really good care of myself, so it's been working. But life, as I seem to say all the time, but particularly at the moment, is a little bit crazy. It's a bit bonkers, and I'm doing a lot of travelling, and I'm not necessarily getting as much rest as I need to, because that travelling eats into the time I have to do things, and I end up having very busy weekends and the evenings that I do have free. And yeah, so I'm just feeling a little bit under the weather, and I'm trying to head it off with a nice big cup of warm Ribena. I'm fairly certain this doesn't help in any way. It says in the bottle, oh, you see, you can hear I've got like a little frog in my throat. It says in the bottle it's got vitamin C in it, but it's probably like very, very minimal. I think it's just it's a nostalgia thing. When I was unwell, when I was little, I always used to have hot Ribena. My granddad and my mum used to give me hot Ribena, and my nan, of course. Everyone gave me hot Ribena, and I'm babbling. So it's going to be a slightly shorter episode today due to having a million and one other things to do and feeling a little bit ugh. So I hope you won't mind. But let's move on to the podcast proper and start with Whipped Up. Oh, goodness me. You can tell I haven't done that for a few weeks. I'm a little bit out of practice. So I will do my best not to babble on so much this week, but I am, as I say, I'm feeling a little bit scattered, and my throat is probably going to do that in and out throughout the episode, so I do apologise. But yeah, my head's feeling a little bit scattered. I'm very aware of the length of my to-do list, so do forgive me if I get a little bit distracted and scattier than normal. On the bright side, though it will be a short podcast, we have a pile of foes. An absolute pile. I can't even remember the last time I podcasted. I'm going to say definitely wasn't in November. It might have been in November. I can't actually remember. Remember November. See? Babble. Scatty. But in that time I have finished a project, and I've started and finished not one, not two, 3 other projects. So again, I've said this throughout the year, I don't know who I am. This I think takes me to 16 finished objects for the year, only one of which is a garment, which is not really what I had planned, but you know me, when it comes to my knitting, I love to make a plan and then cheerfully abandon it. I'm quite organised and plan heavy with other things, but knitting, don't have to, it's fine. So let's crack on with what my foes are. It will come as no surprise to you that the very first finished object that I have are my next pair of Christmas socks. So I was inspired by Amy Florence of the Stranded podcast and Stranded Dyeworks. She knit herself 25 pairs of Christmas socks and I decided to jump on that very festive bandwagon. She is also currently running the Festive sock along, which I believe runs till the end of November, so you've got a week or so left. And so these were knit as part of her cowl. These are, as usual, my vanilla sock recipe, which I pulled together by watching the videos from Meanwhile at the Castle. I'll link to those below, because if you are stuck trying to learn to knit socks like I was for so long, this is the best way to learn, in my opinion. I've recommended them all over the place. These are knit, again, at the moment, as always, out of West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. This is their KM Pepper for the contrast heels, toes and cuffs, and the main body of the sock is knit out of their 2019 Christmas colourway, Robin. Now these are not traditional Christmas socks, and I think they probably wouldn't make it into Amy's box of socks, because she has talked about how she likes kind of the traditional red, green and gold. Red, green and gold? Red, green and white as traditional Christmas colours. And while we've got some red and we've got some kind of creamy white here, they're not very traditional, but they do remind me of Robins. They do remind me of like Christmas gingerbread, and there is something just cozy and warm about this colourway. So this, I am happy to say, these, I have two because they're a faux. I'm happy to say will be the third addition to my Christmas box of socks. Not that I have a box. I was out this weekend and I did pop into Paper Chase and I couldn't find a box that was big enough. And I know that's a bit fussy and I could get two, but I want just one little box to go in a nice stack with my Christmas decorations, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. So maybe I will get lucky and get something in the post-Christmas sales. But I'm very, very happy with these. That is number 3 for my Advent box of socks. It is also the 3rd of my West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas colourways to knit up. I only have to finish my Toe Up Holly Berry socks and I will have knit up my entire West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas stash. Well, until next year, when they'll hopefully bring out another Christmas colour that I can knit up as part of the Festive sock along and add to my box. So I'm very, very happy with those. That is another faux. I think most of my faux this year have probably been socks, so learning to knit socks has just been the best thing for me and for the podcast content. My second finished object is a bit of a weird one. I have been looking for an alternative to tinsel. I don't like tinsel. No, that's not entirely accurate. I love how tinsel looks, but I find that it's not particularly sturdy. It lasts maybe 2 to 3 Christmases and then you throw it away, and I think that's a terrible, terrible waste. Particularly when it's only something you're using for a couple of weeks at a time. I just feel like it should last a bit longer. So I've been thinking about it for a couple of months. I plan ahead. Obviously I was thinking about Christmas a couple of months ago. And I thought I would give tinsel yarn a go. So I bought myself some King Cole Tinsel Chunky, and I can't remember if they had specific names because I threw away the ball bands, which was very silly of me. But I've got silver, red and green and gold. And all I did was I used the largest crochet hook that I have, which was a 6, and I crocheted a long chain. And then, for example, here I crocheted 2 colours together, still using the 6 because I didn't have anything bigger. It would be a lot easier if I had, but I didn't. And I crocheted here the red and the gold together, the red and the green together, the green and the gold. And then for the silver, I just chained the entire ball, and when I got to the end, I folded it in half and then chained those 2 together to make one long one, because this is the one that's actually going to go on my tree. My tree is very small. I have ordered myself a potted Christmas tree, the idea being that it will go out into the garden every year and then just be brought in for Christmas. The reason why I did this is because this will literally now last, I probably, you know, the rest of my life. It's quite sturdy. I chained it quite loosely, so there are little holes there so I can like pop it onto branches. I don't have to worry about bits falling off because it's a lot denser. You can probably see that. It's a lot denser than bought tinsel, like shop bought tinsel. It's a lot softer, unlike shop bought tinsel, and it doesn't have that weird smell. Tinsel has a weird smell that I don't altogether enjoy. But the idea is I've got all these lovely coloured ones that I'm going to hang. You know, I've got a mirror here and a fireplace here and a bookcase over there, and these long coloured pieces will go all around my room. I might, one of these shorter pieces, I have actually got, I've just remembered, this gold. This was the leftover from the gold, and this I just chained once. I didn't chain it together. And this, I think I've got quite a tall palm tree. It's not a palm tree, it's a palmy plant looking thing, which is behind my camera, and I was going to twine this around it a little bit, around the pot, and maybe up over some of the leaves to, you know, jazz it up a little bit for Christmas. But yeah, it is basically going to last forever. I'm very happy that I won't have to spend any money on tinsel ever again, not that I have in years, because I don't like how it feels and how it smells, and I'm just happy to have an alternative, and one that I handmade. And it only took me a day. I just settled in with a kind of watch list of films and crocheted. Crocheted, and now I have all of this tinsel. And what I don't use up here, I will probably donate to the cause downstairs. This, I think, is a great alternative to purchasing tinsel. So if you're getting a bit annoyed about the fact that you're buying something and then throwing it away pretty much after using it for 2 weeks, this is a great alternative. I really recommend it. I will let you know how it goes. I am obviously going to be sharing pictures of it draped around my room and all over my Christmas tree, and I will talk you through how it lasts and how it holds up. But for me, just feeling it, it's a lot higher quality than the stuff you'd buy in the shops. As I say, having the loops actually in the chain means it's going to be a lot easier to put up, so I'm going to be able to put little pins in and just hang it, so it won't tear. It's just going to last a hell of a lot longer, which I think is a good thing. Now my third faux, it's hard to say that, third faux, is also another project that I started and finished since the last episode, and it's another one that I did in a day. I made a set of little family sweaters. So these are the mini Weasley sweaters, and these are by Alison Hansel from her book Charmed Knits, which is a great book. I knit my own Weasley jumper out of it. There are a lot of really lovely patterns in it, so if you can get a hold of it, I would recommend. And I knit this out of scraps of Rialto, Debbie Bliss Rialto DK. So we've got the yellow and the green, which was left over from making a pineapple hat, and the green and the orange, which were left over from making a pumpkin hat. The green got used quite a lot for those hats. This is coral, this is basil, and this is mustard. And they are just so quick and easy to do. I didn't duplicate stitch because it looked really horrible, so I just did a simple back stitch. And then I did mum and dad and little baby sweater. And the idea was I'd already knit them quite a few things for the baby, as you've seen if you've seen earlier episodes from this year, but I wanted to give them something a little bit special for their first Christmas together as a family. I'll be seeing them at the beginning of December, so I've got a little bit of time to find some wire because I want to make little hangers so that they will hang on the tree. If I can't find hangers, I probably will just add a little thread to it, but I think the hangers look really cute, so I'm going to try and find that. It's just a case of finding the time to get to a hardware kind of shop, but I might send somebody else on a mission. But yeah, if you're looking for something quick and easy to make, or as a little gift, or even these would make great gift tags. So if you've got the time, you could like get a bag, put all their gifts in it, and then just hang a little jumper off it with their initial on. So I think that'd be quite cute. Now last but by no means least, I'm also very conscious of the fact that when I'm drinking Ribena, I end up with like a little red wine smile. So sorry about that, and I promise it's not red wine. But last but not least is another Christmassy make. I know that for some people November is too soon to be talking about Christmas, and to a certain extent I agree, But for me, December is such a short month between work and parties and seeing different people and, you know, trying to get everything done, and you kind of lose a big chunk of time at the end of the month because, you know, you've got that week between Christmas and New Year when there's not really anything to do. I like to get things done early. My plan is always to have everything ready to go by the 1st of December so that I can just enjoy December. So yes, all of my Christmas shopping is complete. I have to do my wrapping, I have to write my Christmas cards, but I have everything I need. And that just means that come the 1st of December, I can start to watch the really good Christmas films, because I am watching Christmas films, they're just not very good ones. But I can start to watch my favourites, I can start to drink mulled wine and listen to songs, Christmas songs that is, and write my cards and wrap my presents. And just enjoy it without thinking I've got all this stuff to do. There's no time pressure anymore. So with that disclaimer, this is my last faux. And I will say, yes, I haven't woven the ends in. There's some ends on the heel and the ends on the cuff. I will get round to it, I promise, before I gift this. But this is the Twinkle Toes stocking pattern. It's crochet by Sandra Paul of Cherry Heart Blog. And it is knit out of Paintbox. I believe it's DK, but it was unlabelled when I found it in my stash. I think it's pansy purple, champagne white and rose red. I'm fairly certain it's their DK. And I just had this in my stash that I'd clearly used for something else, so I thought I would put it to work here. And this is for a friend of mine. A few years ago I crocheted her and her partner, her husband even, I crocheted them their own stockings, and they have since had a little girl, and she is 2 and will be 3 fairly early next year. So she's old enough to understand that Christmas is a thing now. So I have made her her own stocking to go up next to her mum and dad's. And it was super, super quick. I have been doing a fairly long commute recently and going forward into the future. So I spend about 6 hours, 3 days a week on a train, which means that I don't have much time in the evenings to do anything. But I finished this in 5 days. I had to think a little bit about, it starts at the toe, and I had to think a little bit about that. But then once I'd kind of got to the foot, it was just quite mindless. I had to stop and think again for the heel. But again, once I got to the leg, it was quite mindless. And then I get to my favourite, which is the rib stitch around the top, which I think looks lovely. And this is probably what I'm going to use around the edge of my Crochet Stripes blanket. I've used this, gosh, I think this might be the 8th one I've made. Yeah, I think this is about the 8th I've made. And it is a really, really simple pattern, really effective. It's going to look lovely hanging up. I made hers a little bit bigger because Christmas is for kids, you know. So I'm really happy with that. I do need to make a little initial to hang on it so she knows it's hers. However, as I say, there is a lot going on at the moment, so I don't know if I will get round to doing that, because I usually cross stitch them onto plastic canvas, and I usually design it myself to match the others that are hanging up. So I don't know that I'll get round to that before Christmas. So what I might do is I will give her this to hang this year, and I will attach something for her so she knows it's hers next year. Not ideal, but as I say, I'm not going to beat myself up about it too much. She's got something to put presents in, and that's the main thing. So with so many faux, whips are fairly thin on the ground. I only have 2 to show you this week. First up, living as all my sock projects are at the moment, in my cat in the bag little bucket bag, we have got, you will be shocked, I know, to hear this, but we have got my next Christmas sock. I was lucky enough to snag a Christmas sock set from Amy Florence of Stranded Dyeworks. So this is her Christmas 2019 colourway. This is Gingerbread House, and I got the sock set with the contrast of Christmas red. And I got this in her BFL nylon. And as always, when I knit a vanilla pattern, I am using the recipe that I wrote based on, oh, I've just dropped stuff on the floor. And as always with my vanilla socks, I'm using the recipe that I came up with based on the Meanwhile at the Castle tutorial videos. And look how beautifully it knits up. The slight change I've made is I've done a 1x1 twisted rib instead of my usual 2x2 normal rib. But otherwise, once I'd got through that, it's just normal in the round stockinette, and look how beautiful that is. They are so lovely. This colour, again, not traditional Christmassy. I think that the pop of red really brings it up to festive muster, but there's this beautiful kind of gingerbready brown, little pops of pink and gold and green, and it's just lovely. And this is going to make a really beautiful pair of socks, which will be my 4th that I have finished for my box of socks, because let's face it, this is likely to get finished before my toe-up socks are, and I will have plenty left to put into my advent calendar for next year and to put into my blankets. This has been slightly neglected, because when I have small projects like the tinsel, like the mini sweaters, like the stocking, where I know that a bit of concerted effort I can finish them fairly quickly, other things go on a back burner. I get a little bit monogamous until I can kind of finish them because they feel like a short sprint. But this has been in my bag when I've been on the train. I'm usually quite tired, so I tend to read or doze. So I haven't got much done on the train, but I did get about an inch done yesterday. I was driving across London. Obviously, I was not driving across London. The traffic is bad, but not so bad that I could knit an inch of stockinette while in the car, while driving. I was in the passenger seat, and I was in a car driving across London from southeast to northwest, and I got about an inch done on those. So there's that knits up beautifully quickly. It does feel quite different to Amy's merino nylon, as you would expect, because it's a BFL, and it does just feel, it doesn't have that kind of smoothness. I wouldn't even say it's about softness, but it isn't definitely not as smooth feeling as the merino nylon. It feels sturdier, but not in a bad way at all. I think they're going to be perfectly comfortable. They're not itchy. They're soft enough to be worn close to the skin. I could definitely wear this around my neck. It just has a feeling like, yeah, these are going to wear. Told you, long week, tired. These are going to wear really, really well. They're going to be super sturdy, and can't wait to get them finished, really. As they're my main kind of project at the moment, they should knit up fairly quickly. You've probably already guessed what the other whip is. It's just back here. It is my Cozy Stripes blanket. As always, when I'm a bit worn out and run down and tired, that is what I reach for. And just like everyone else, I am using the Crochet Stripes pattern. I think it's called Crochet, I think it is just called Crochet Stripes by Attic 24. It's a really, really simple pattern. I love Lucy of Attic number 24's very simple crochet blanket patterns. She's so brilliant at describing how to do things, and is a fantastic crocheter herself. Her colour sense is lovely. So if you're not sure where to start, that would be the place I would recommend. I'm still using the magic ball that Katie of Inside Number 23 gave me, and then he said Inside Number 3, which is wrong. Inside Number 23 gave me, and I'm making good progress. It's a little bit smaller. I find that it doesn't have as long strips of colour as my Advent ball did, so I feel like it's going a lot quicker. It's obviously not, it just feels that way because the colours are changing that little bit quicker, so I'm able to kid myself. And I'm currently on this beautiful yellow, which is just gorgeous and one of my favourite colours. I won't hold it up because there's not much to see, because I think I've done maybe 3 rows, but it is a basket of, yeah, sheepy, smells very sheepy actually, sheepy goodness, colourful goodness, and just makes me happy. So that's it this week for faux and works in progress. I feel it's been a little bit light on the ground, despite the fact that it's an unheard of 4? No, surely not 4. 4 projects, 4 faux. Which is, I think, a record for this podcast. But I think having few whips, and I feel like the faux that I've fauxed are fairly small, so it feels like I haven't done much, but clearly I have, and that's the wonderful thing about this podcast. It forces you to kind of look back at what you've done, and instead of feeling like I've done nothing, you're like, oh, finished 4 objects in like 3 weeks. That's great. So there won't be any knit and natter this week because I've racked my brains and I've got no idea what to natter about. Oh gosh. Said no one who knows me. Actually, I talk the hind leg off a donkey, and as you can probably tell by this episode where I've just blathered on and made, I hope, some sense, but potentially not a lot. But I wanted to talk very quickly about something I did, I think probably about 6 weeks ago now, because I tidied up my stash. Now, I did this 2 years ago maybe, and I haven't really gone through it and reorganised it since. And it really needed it. I've talked before about having a tiny but mighty stash, but just because it's tiny doesn't mean it doesn't need some wrangling sometimes. I was very, very behind on Amy's podcasts, Amy of Stranded, as I have said very many times throughout this podcast. I'm not on commission, for the record, but I was very behind on her podcast. And so I did a massive binge over a couple of weeks to catch up. And I can't remember in what episode it was because obviously I was watching them just back to back while I was doing other things. But she talked about tidying up her stash using IKEA kind of storage freezer bags. And I thought that seemed like a fantastic idea. So I decided to copy her again. As with everything Amy does, I decided to copy her. So a couple of years ago, when I was living in East London, I purchased this here, which is a 4-drawer tall plastic storage drawer set. I couldn't afford to get anything particularly expensive. We didn't really have the space, so it was just going to live inside my wardrobe. So I just got this kind of plastic one. And I organised things and put them all in the drawers. But I was kind of very conscious of the fact that the drawers were the only thing protecting them, and I kept meaning to get storage bags and I just never got round to it. So when Amy suggested these ones, I thought, there we go, I don't have to think about it. I already know they work because she's recommended them. I'm going to get them. So this is the bulk of my stash in here. Ooh, just knocking poor little Scylla the plant. But over here, where I have my bookcase, I have a Kallax, which is also by IKEA. Also not sponsored by IKEA. And at the bottom, I have 2 tubs, which is where I was kind of keeping the overflow. So what I have done is I have grouped all of my yarns together. So I have grouped fingering weight together, and then within the fingering weight I have grouped kind of brands. So for example, I had 4 skeins of Nora George, they all live in a bag together, and where I don't have more than one from a particular brand, I try to group them by colour, just so that when I'm kind of going through the drawer, it's easier to find them. If I know I'm looking for a blue skein and I can see a bluish something in a bag, I can whip the bag out, fairly certain that the one I'm looking for is going to be in there. Further down in the drawers, I have all my sweater quantities together, again, all packed into one bag, so I can just pull it out and I've got my sweater quantity ready to go. And over in my Kallax, I have 1 tub with a big bag of minis, 2 big bags of minis, if I'm being honest. And also in there is plenty of space for me to keep my whips. So usually my sock projects just live in my handbag, but at the moment, well, not at the moment because I finished them all, but as you can see over the past few weeks I've had several on the go, and they've all just at the end of the day been popped in there, pushed away, and then I don't have to think about it, it's tidied away. But they're really easy to get to. So if I'm sitting in my bed I can just reach over and open it up. The other tub holds my price skeins, so they're all packed away in little plastic bags and stacked neatly, and that is where I go for prizes. One thing I did do while I was organising my stash, which made the process a hell of a lot longer, I will be honest with you. I could have got it done very, very quickly had I not done this, but it felt important. I updated my Ravelry stash. Now, the reason why I like to have my Ravelry updated, I mean, when it comes to projects, I just like to see them all there. It makes me feel really good. I love seeing all like the completed pictures and seeing how far I've come. I really enjoy that. Stash has a lot more practical purpose for me. It means that if I'm downstairs, or even if I'm in bed, this sits at the end of my bed usually, I can go, I want to knit a hat, and I can go through my stash and see what I've got that is appropriate without having to get up and physically rifle through it. which makes life a hell of a lot easier. It's also quite handy if I'm out and for example, if I'm at a show and I see a 3-colour shawl and I think I desperately want to make that, it's quite nice to have a quick flick through my stash to see, well, do I have anything I can use already? If I do, what contrast colour do I need to pick up? So it's just handy to have my stash in my pocket. Now, I will be honest, my stash, if you have a look at the stash tab on my Ravelry profile, it is not a pretty place to be. I haven't taken the most beautiful pictures. They are not the most well lit pictures, I'll be honest. I think it was getting fairly late when I was working on doing this, and I think it was raining, so it's quite dark outside anyway. So they're not the best pictures. However, because I have quite a small stash, sometimes I only need something to jog my memory. I only need to go, oh yeah, no, I remember that. And I'll remember the colours more accurately than they're perhaps shown in the picture. I also don't fill in where I bought them from or how much they were, because that, while it would be handy to have, well, not even handy, while it would be nice to have, I don't need that information. I need weight and yardage. So that's all that I logged. If I had racked my brains for each of them and gone, where did I buy this? How much was it? I'd have been there all night. And for me, my big thing was this just needs to be usable. So yeah, all I filled out was picture, yardage, weight, and then I did 2 other things. One of them was I connected, I don't know how you would call it on Ravelry, but I pinned a pattern to the stash if there was something I had in mind for it, if there was something I bought it for. For example, I bought some Rama Phenol Garn PT2 when I was last at Edinburgh Yarn Festival because I want to make the Minette mittens by Isolde. So I attached that pattern to it. There was another sweater quantity that I have in mind for a specific cardigan, so I attached that to it. The others, I have used tags. So I have tagged socks, hat, shawl, sweater, or prize. So that when I'm going through my stash, because I want to knit a hat, I can just search for hat and it will pull up the skeins that I've already earmarked as potential hats. It also means that when I'm looking for prizes, I can just look on my phone. I don't have to pull out the tub. I can look on my phone, I can make a decision, and then I can go and pull out the ones that I want. So it just makes life so much more easy because I can just flick through on my phone before going to look for it. Potentially, if I had a larger stash, there is a section in there that tells you that we can fill in where you've stored things. If I had a larger stash, I would probably use that. But as it is, I know most things are in here. And it's 4 drawers. So if I can't remember whether it's fingering weight, top or bottom, I can just open them and find out. So yeah, I have been fairly busy and a lot more productive than I actually thought I'd been. So I'm quite proud of myself. I'm really sorry if this is a particularly short episode. I'm going to be honest and say I'm not sure when the next episode will be, purely because as we approach December, weekends get very, very busy. There are events and gatherings and various other things, and frankly, when I'm not doing those things, I should probably get some sleep. However, I will be back before Christmas. I certainly hope I will be back before Christmas. So just keep an eye out and I will be back when I can. And I will see you then for another cup of tea. Take care. Bye.